All right, we got multiple updates from the Pelicans this weekend. First, there's a new two-way players. This is the sharpshooter the Pelicans needed. And we've seen an updated court design. What's that hint at for the future? It's Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all on this Monday. We are back to 5 days a week here at Locked On Pelicans. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast. We're a week away from Media Day, and I'm really excited about Media Day for a number of reasons, but we're going to have some really cool content coming out of there for y'all. So stay tuned for that coming next week. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, and become an everyday or listen Monday through Friday because, well, we're the number one show, and we got a lot coming to y'all this season. I'm actually going to talk about kind of the coverage plan for this season in the third segment, things to expect, some feedback I need from y'all as well. So we'll get into all of that. Now for your second listen, Locked On Saints, Derek Carr going down in that annoying loss to the Green Bay Packers. How long is he going to be out for? What's the latest update? Ross Jackson's going to have everything black and gold for you over at the Locked On Saints podcast. So let's get into it. We got a new signing for the Pelicans here. Kaiser Gates coming in from the G League for the Pelicans this season, playing with the Long Island Nets last year, where per Shams, as they're signing him to a two-way deal, he shot 55.4% from three. It's an incredible number on 5 attempts per game, making 2.8. Those are really good numbers, 55.4% from three. So it's easy to get excited about this, but don't forget, two-way players don't largely make an amazing impact, but he does have good size at 6'8". However, he is 26. He's been in the G League for 4 years. So is this the guy that's kind of the answer to the Pelicans' shooting woes? You know, ranking near dead last in the league in terms of attempts last year, losing Trey Murphy III for a while? The answer is probably not. I like taking a flyer on a guy that shot 55% from three last year. But if you look at his historical numbers in the G League, the 3 years before this one, he's played in the G League 4 years. It's not amazing, and the 55% is probably more of an outlier than anything. Season before that, he shot 35.6%. It's not bad. 33 the year before that. 37.5% his first year in the G League. In college, playing for Xavier, he shot okay at times. His junior year, he shot 37.8% from three, but 33.9% the year before, 33% the year before that. For his career in college, he's a 35.7% shooter. For his time in the G League, he's 38.6%. So it's a little bit of a far cry from that 55.4% number. And if you look at it just without that season, it's not pulling those numbers for me, so never mind. So I don't know if the numbers are as good as, that last season was, but he certainly isn't a bad shooter. I just wouldn't expect him to come in and make some immediate impact at all. He's on a two-way deal, meaning there's limits to the amount of games he can play with the Pelicans, the practices and things like that. And it's more likely just an insurance signing. And if he ends up playing significant minutes for the Pelicans, if he's spacing the court out there for Zion and that's how they're using him, something went wrong. Something went really, really wrong. And that's not what they should be really doing whatsoever. So the other questions then become, how are the Pelicans going to fill out the rest of, any two-way deals that they have, things that they want to do? And that's still an open question. We're not entirely sure on all of that. They do have Darian Sebron there, who's on that two-way deal. He played well in Summer League, was arguably the best player for the Pelicans. We've wondered if a guy like Landers Nolly would be able to take that other spot after shooting 50% from three, I think, in Summer League, being there. He'll be in training camp for the Pelicans too. Or did Kaiser Gates maybe just take that two-way deal from him? because you think the Pelicans would want to try and go, you get three-way deals here, guard, wing, big man. Nolly is out there on the wing, and so is Kaiser Gates. Does that maybe limit a little bit of Nolly's potential? The other guy that I think we're waiting to see, and maybe the Pelicans are even waiting to see on, is Liam Robbins. And we talked about this last week or the week before, I forget which, when looking at some of the two-way contract guys for the Pelicans. This is a former SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Played 4 years in college. Senior year of Vanderbilt was blocking over 3 shots per game. We've talked that the Pelicans don't need to go out and get a rim protector per se if they're one-dimensional, or even 1.5 dimensions if that's really all that they do. You don't need to pay NBA money necessarily for something that doesn't quite fit what you do, because you need people who can do just more than blocking shots. It's why I'm not in favor of them going after a guy like Nerlens Noel, let's say. But if you can kind of maybe get that for cheap on a two-way deal, I'm really open to that idea. And Liam Robbins at 7 foot, I think could be that guy. He's been injured, was signed to the team for Summer League, didn't play in Summer League at all, but should be ready to go for training camp, which starts in a week essentially at this point. We should, I would imagine, hear from him at Media Day. I think this is a guy that they might be earmarking one of those two-way contract spots for, and I think that's a good idea. Kind of diversify the positions you have those two-way deals for to really provide insurance. And to be fair, they're a little bit thin, I think, at the big man spot. You have Valanciunas and Zion there along with Larry Nance Jr. After that, are you putting Trey at the 4, BI at the 4? They can all do that a little bit at times, Trey more so than BI. Herb we've seen him play the 5 a little bit, even though it's not particularly great. They get thin quickly. You also have Zeller, actually, I should mention, who's really up there as kind of the 4th guy. But if there's an injury, if there's foul trouble or something like that, or someone struggles, that could really change the complexity of that. So I think Liam Robbins, and just the idea of him sounds great in theory. The Pelicans have done well with two-way contracts, since they've been introduced. You had Kenrich Williams, who was a key contributor, was factored into certain trades there too. You've seen it with Najee Marshall. You've seen it with Jose Alvarado. I think those are the type of things that get me very excited about what they could do with some of these players. We've seen very good player development from the team. So I'm curious if it's Liam Robbins, if it's Landers Nolly, or if there's someone else out that they're looking that maybe isn't involved with them from Summer League or training camp just yet, as they did with Kaiser Gates. But I don't expect to see Kaiser Gates really contributing. But look, having some more shooting than not on a two-way where, totally cool. Love the idea of what they're doing here in theory. Use these contracts as you want to. There's no real wrong way to do it. So coming up next, you're all always interested in jerseys, and there'll be a hint of jerseys in what I'm going to talk about next. But we did get a new court design from the Pelicans. What's that hint at towards the future and just kind of their branding and stuff in general? Let's talk about that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Before we get to that, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by DoorDash. Do you love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can stock up for next week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. Look, maybe you tried to go run to the market right before the Saints game at 11, which is just a terrible idea because you need one or two little things to make the game day spread a little bit more. Make it more convenient. Let DoorDash do that for you. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. And with thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. And if you want even more value, you can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. So with easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer support, DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. So get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNBA. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for 50% off your first DoorDash order. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday for y'all. Coming to you even when I've been sick the past week, when I was in jury duty and on a jury the past week, still pumping out the shows and everything. You can hear it in my voice a little bit. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast. We are here Monday through Friday. So make sure you subscribe. And if you want to support the channel a little bit more, comment down below on YouTube. Let me know what you want to hear about this coming season. We'll talk about the coverage plan a little bit because I'm going to be mixing it up just slightly, actually adding more for y'all and other things too. So I'm excited about all that. That's coming up in the next segment here. And of course, become an everydayer. And if you're an everydayer, let me know. I want to do kind of like a special club thing for an everydayer. So that's going to be totally awesome. I'm excited about it. I still got to figure out what that is. And if you're an everydayer, let me know what would, add value, be meaningful to you. Now, for your second listen, Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, go check out everything you need to know black and gold, especially after that Derek Carr injury. So let's get into the new court design. The Pelicans unveiled this on still getting over being sick, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, the other day. Fresh new look at the new Smoothie King Center court. I'm going to be honest, it looks good. I like it. I think what I like most about it is they're doing something different. They're changing it up. I think everyone feels the jerseys have been stale a little bit because, frankly, they've had more or less the same home and away, the blue, the white, and then a red jersey for a while. And even though they refreshed the red jerseys this year, which I've been telling you about for like 2 seasons now, because I'd seen them, and I've seen the alternates this year too, the City Edition jerseys this year too, that they just need to do something different, just something new, right? Even if it's for the sake of doing it new as your main jerseys, we just need a bit of a refresh. And I do think the Pelicans are doing that this year. And the new court design, I think, definitely fits that. Go take a look on Twitter if you haven't seen it yet. But it's, standard basketball court, and then kind of the borders around it. At the top, it's a lighter blue than what we normally see. And it's got a bit of like a swamp motif to it. You kind of see the oak trees and swampy trees. You see 2 pelicans kind of lurking right below the basket on the left and the right of the court. And then as you get down, you see some grass, and there's kind of, the word I'll use is a gradient here, going from blue to black, or a gradient of black to blue. And as you go down, you get to where it says Pelicans there. You see the Mississippi River and kind of like the outline of the area and everything. In the play area, you've got 3 fleur-de-lis on each side of it too, kind of mimicking in a sense, even though they're not exactly that, the 3 fleur-de-lis on the New Orleans flag, and the Pelicans did a flag edition, city edition jersey a couple of years ago, or was it last year? I forget which. And it wasn't particularly well received. It wasn't bad. I think it was 2 years ago they did that. So you're seeing them kind of tie in a little more local flavor to the court, things like that, right? The swamp from the bayou, the Mississippi River, more fleur-de-lis around things that are just standard fleur-de-lis and not with like the Pelicans logo in it or something like that. They're trying to, I think, tie things in a little bit better than that. I think that lighter blue is not necessarily the sign of a color change for the team colors or anything, because it doesn't match the logo at center court. But I think it's more, if you had that darker blue and then going to the black there, it wouldn't totally work. And so I think that gradient to get kind of a better transition that you can see is why they did that. The logo in the center of the court, though, is worth looking at, because while it's the Pelicans logo with, the bird, the wings, the basketball kind of right behind the beak, under the beak, or is it in the beak? Is it biting it? I'm not sure. It is different because it doesn't have the New Orleans in the red down below. So there's less of an emphasis on red here in that main logo, because they've kind of subtly changed their official logos and things like that. You now see the bird logo with New Orleans in like script in a font down below it, as opposed to it being kind of tied into the logo. So it does kind of mean there's a little bit of a rebrand with those sorts of things. On the jersey front, when I saw this court at first, I thought it was maybe going to be like a special edition court. A number of teams have courts they break out on like special nights or when they wear the city edition jerseys. I'm not entirely certain if this is the actual court that they're going to have for like the whole season or the majority of the season, or if they're going to break it out for like special occasions. We might find that out on media day a little bit more. But I wouldn't be shocked if this is what they use the whole season and it's just kind of like the standard court out there. But it's nice that they just did something different, right? That they finally have kind of mixed it up and not done something that they've had for, at this point, a decade, I think, is what the jerseys have been. Maybe it's a little bit longer than that. I forget the exact timing on everything. 13, 14, something like that, right, was when they did it. So it's been about 10, 11 years that they've had kind of the same basic stuff. So to do something different, I think is great. We'd like them to do a little bit more. I definitely think the standard home, the away jerseys, the association, whatever, the jerseys that they call them, those definitely need a little bit of a refresh, and I think that's coming in time. This year's City Edition jersey, if what I've seen is what it actually ends up being, and look, the Reds are what I ended up seeing. So I think if that holds true, it's going to be, you'll see some of it tied to this court. That's all I'll say there. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not really authorized to say anything like that at all either. But I do think it's going to be different than what it's been in the past, and I think people will like that. I hope we continue to see stuff like this. I hope we continue to see that kind of ties more to the region, the city, using the river as a theme in things. It's tough to kind of, encompass New Orleans in one design, right? New Orleans East is so different than Uptown, which is different from the French Quarter, which is kind of separate from Mardi Gras and all of that. So when they have to pick a City Edition jersey and it's we'll just do Mardi Gras, it's all right, let's try and do something else. And then you see people saying do the wrought iron designs and some of the fan designs that have come up, and all y'all are incredibly talented with some of those, by the way. It's how do you kind of sum up a city that's as eclectic as this, that has so many different aspects to it? And it's not easy, but, the river kind of, oh man, it was going to sound so cheesy, and I don't know if I even want to say it out loud. The river runs kind of through everything, runs through it. So maybe that's a good way to kind of go and bring in part of the larger region, to the themes that they're trying to run out there. And I think they would like to position the team as kind of the team of the Gulf South, kind of getting to Mobile, parts of Mississippi. And I know there's a lot of fans that even come in for very many games from those areas too. So all of that I do think is something that they're really trying to do. And I think this is a very good kind of first step with things. I hope we continue to see it with the music, bringing in the local performances and things like that they've done the past year. They would always walk down the aisle in my section and you could see me on the big screen, which I don't love. But that's just kind of how it goes. So I really hope they continue to bring in an eclectic mix of music that kind of encompasses all the different parts of New Orleans, and not just the ones that people kind of stereotypically think about that are kind of the low-hanging fruit that other people think. You got to get some deep cuts, other things like that, because New Orleans is very many things to very many people, and I only think that would be a good thing when it comes to the branding and the reach of this team. So when it comes to reach, we got a pretty good reach here at Locked On Pelicans. Let's talk about the coverage next season. I also have a funny story for you because it's actually my Locked On anniversary, and I'll tell you that if you haven't heard it, how I ended up hosting the show. And oh man, that was an adventure, and things have gone a little bit differently. I might not be here. So that's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday for y'all, breaking down everything you want to know about this Pelicans team, the #1 Pelicans podcast. We are here Monday through Friday. I'm excited. We're back to 5 days a week. I hope you're excited too. Media Day is now probably less than a week away by the time you're listening to this. I can't wait. I'm going to be there. We're going to get some fun stuff for Locked On too. So I can't wait. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Tell a friend about the show. I haven't said that one on here in a while. Make sure they're clued into what's going on. You all have that friend that asks kind of dumb questions, things like that. I have friends that ask them to me. I'm not going to say any names out here. They probably don't even know who they are. But come on, y'all. If you listen to the show, you don't need to ask those questions. So make sure your friends are listening to Locked On Pelicans. Become an everydayer yourself. Then you're going to be as informed as anyone else out there. And of course, there's other ways to interact with me, which we'll talk about here. So if you're listening in this segment, which I get to see the audience numbers and kind of what it gets to at the end of the show and things like that. If you're listening now, you love the show, you love the Pelicans, and I love you for that. So I want to talk about the coverage because I think this is the stuff that you also care about, and this is your chance to give me feedback on things. Obviously, as we get towards the season and when games start happening, there's just a natural rhythm, a natural cadence to how it goes, right? They play a game on a Tuesday. When I record Tuesday night for Wednesday's show, it's going to be about that game. And usually the whole show is going to be about that game, unless there's other big news that we really need to talk about. So we'll kind of keep the standard stuff of, what's the big story from that game? What's the big things to kind of take away? How did some of the guys play? What did we learn? What did we see? What do we think they could change? If there's news and other rumors, we'll break those into the segments too, but we kind of tend to lead with the games, which I think makes sense. On off days, it's rumors, it's news, it's breaking down stats, other things, just kind of like the regular show that you've been listening to for, at this point, 7 seasons. I'll tell you the story here in a second. One of the things I want to start doing is live post-game shows. So the second the game ends, start recording and go live on YouTube for y'all so we can kind of all react together immediately in the moment. And I don't want to just do this for away games, which I watch when I'm at home. I can just walk right into my office, watch, and start recording. Take a minute or two to kind of plan out what the show's going to be and then go from there. But I also want to do it for home games, of which I'm at the arena for, and record in the arena for you and get the immediate reaction. And maybe we can bring on some other guests and things for those too. So I want to have those kind of immediate reaction post-game shows right away. I'm still working on some of the logistics of that, but I think I am going to be in a good spot to be able to kind of make the show mobile in a sense. So I'm excited to be able to do that with y'all and for y'all this year. I'm curious your thoughts. It might mean they're a little bit less planned out than they have been in the past as we're kind of in the moment with some of that. But I think it's going to be a good way, and we can do it live where you can ask questions, where you can share your thoughts too. And they might not be as interactive as the live shows that we do Thursdays at 7 p.m. are, but that is your time for me to interact with you. Post-game, we kind of have an agenda we need to get through, but I'll be able to see your comments, answer some of your questions, and things like that as well. After every game during the week, there's always going to be that 1-minute video that I've been doing for the past 2 seasons now. Just a quick 1 minute, what do you need to know? What's the one big takeaway? Posted as a YouTube short, and it's posted to Twitter, X as well. That's going to still be there for y'all. There's going to be more of those too, with just certain random thoughts and things that I have. It's going to be a good way to grow the channel, so stay tuned for those. When it comes to the weekends, it's to be determined on all of that, but I think I want to do more weekend shows, more bonus shows for y'all as well, particularly after big wins. When it comes to Twitter and social media interaction, if you were following me and you saw a guy basically say, when I said, what do you all want to hear about on the show? He says, I don't effing care. And it's like, this is why I don't interact on Twitter, because there's just no need for something like that. If you don't want to listen to the show, you don't have to listen to the show. And I'm not trying to gripe or make it like this. It's just not a great way to interact with a lot of people. And it does open me and other hosts up to abuse, which honestly does get tiring. So I'm going to be using the Locked On Pelicans Insider subtext. There's a link down below. I sent a message out there. On Sunday, we're going to send a bunch more messages this week. There's a 14-day free trial to it. So I really recommend y'all sign up for the 14-day trial, particularly with Media Day around the corner. We're going to be on there a lot. Ross Jackson does it with Locked On Saints a lot too. I love getting those kind of updates during the season. You'll get updates on injuries. You'll get updates on rumors. That's where I'm going to put that stuff of what I'm hearing from talking to people around the team. All of those sorts of things. It's $4.99 a month. If you don't like it, it's okay. The show is still going to be here Monday through Friday. All this stuff is still going to be completely free for y'all. But it's probably the way I'm going to try and interact with y'all more so than on Twitter, because I just don't need to be on there when we have other ways to do it. You can also text me. I get these updates right to my phone and things like that. So shoot me a text and I can kind of see your message, respond directly to you, as well as sending messages out to everybody. So it's going to be a fun way to interact. Well, someone even sent me Roll Wave the other day on there, which I loved. Go Tulane, and their big win over Nicholls State there. So that was pretty cool. So it's a great way to just show off more personality, interact with y'all more on a one-to-one basis. And so that's kind of be the general theme. If there's certain type of shows you want to see, if there's guests and things like that you want to see on the show too, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. Message me on the subtext. Give it a try. Ideas you have, I want to hear all of that. I want your feedback with it. But basically, we're going to add 20% more this season, and maybe just try and be a little bit more timely when it comes to things, especially if I can get the show mobile, which should be able to do. So I'm excited about what we're going to be doing this year, what we're going to be able to kind of accomplish with everything with the Locked On Pelicans podcast. So, quick story time before we end the show here. If you made it this far, I may as well make it worth your while with me kind of being an idiot, but it working out in the end. So, they tweeted out the Locked On Network that it was my 7th anniversary of being part of Locked On as host of this show and Locked On NBA as well. You know, I'm not the original host. Brett Dawson, who used to write for The Advocate, was the original host, did, I don't know, a handful of shows before he ended up moving to Oklahoma City. And then I was one of the people he recommended to kind of potentially take over the show. They did, interviews, reached out to people. David Locke, who's the radio voice for the Utah Jazz, Locked On Podcast Network, where the namesake, the founder, of everything here, had reached out to me and planned to kind of schedule a talk with me to kind of go over the network, which was like in its infancy and everything, like right at the beginning of this. We were like 1 or 2 months into it, kind of talked to me about his vision and everything, and we'd emailed back and forth. We'd set up a time on a Saturday to have a call, a Saturday at like 3 or 4 p.m., which not the best idea I've ever had because it's New Orleans. You go out and you do things on the weekend. And New Orleans used to have the former NOLA on Tap festival, beer festival over at City Park, which was one of my favorite things. They don't do that anymore. But I remember going, was out with some friends, having, frankly, a lot of beer, drank a good bit. You get all those microbrews and everything. It was fun. We had a great day. You're out in the sun. So by the time you're leaving, I don't know, you've had a lot of drinks. You're feeling good, probably kind of drained and tired too from it being August in New Orleans, September in New Orleans, whenever it was. And as we're getting back to the car, getting in the back seat, I get a phone call from a Utah number. And I was like, I don't know who this is. I am not answering. And then it dawned on me what this call was because I had completely forgotten about it. I was not yet 30. I was less mature than I am now, I guess. So, or maybe I was 30. It doesn't matter. I don't think I was. I was less mature than I am now. And well, I had to answer the call because I kind of wanted to host the podcast. So I answered. David asked me all the questions. We chatted a little bit, kind of his vision for everything, how I saw myself fitting in, what I thought I was capable of committing to, all of that. And while I was probably pretty drunk, somehow convinced him to want to offer me the podcast. And here I am 7 years later going in my 8th season hosting Locked On Pelicans. This is something like my 12th or 13th year covering the team overall. So I love being here with y'all. I can't thank you enough for growing the show with me. It's not just me doing it. It's not just my coverage. You might like what I do, but this wouldn't be here without you. I always say that. The show is for you. So I cannot thank you enough for letting me be the host of the show for as long as I have, for being part of this journey with me, from like few people listening at the beginning to 4 million views, listens last year, something like that. Just an incredible, incredible number. And where do you see what we have coming on Media Day, hopefully, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about that. And we're able to do that because of you. So I appreciate y'all so much for that. So more to come this week. We're going to look at stats. We're going to talk trades. We're going to talk everything you want. And if you got an idea for a show, let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. And that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. I'll be back with y'all tomorrow.